Bootlegs, something you don't really see nowadays anymore. Unlicensed games, ROM hacks, unofficial ports, anything that wasn't officially legalized or given permission to be done. Back in the late 2000s and 2010s, there was a gold mine of content for people to look at these unofficial games. Mario on a Sega console, 50 games in one? It was mesmerizing, weird, and really showed a different side of the video game industry, one that operated in the shadows. Today though, the internet is bigger than ever and unofficial content is being uploaded every day, so I guess technically bootlegs still exist, but there's something special about the bootlegs that were created during the time video games began rising up. Now, if we want to be technical, bootleg doesn't just apply to video games. It can apply to movies, products, literally anything that's supposed to be something, but it wasn't legally allowed to be that, so they either adjusted it or just flat out ignored it. Within the topic of video games, it refers to, well, video games along with video game consoles that weren't officially endorsed by the copyright holders. Sometimes it's simply a game being repackaged and being resold without the owners knowing, and sometimes it's a ROM hack that was unofficially made. How about entire video game consoles that were created in order to be sold without paying the original creators? Making these is one thing, but selling them is when things get interesting. Legally, you are not allowed to sell this kind of stuff. Cartridges containing multiple legally obtained games in it, ROM hacks, that stuff is a no-go. And in most places, you would be forbidden from selling it on store shelves. However, in some countries like China, that sort of copyright wasn't exactly enforced, leading to a barrage of bootlegs being scattered across the world. Oftentimes, they'd be cheaper / worse than the real thing. It's like that we got Pop-Tarts at home, and the Pop-Tarts at home be like. One of the biggest examples I have of a bootleg is the Sonic 2 Simon Y prototype, where it was revealed the beta version of Sonic 2 was placed in the cartridges and illegally sold across Asia and South America before the game actually released. This beta was not completed, but many people didn't know that fact. They just thought it was Sonic 2, and they bought it not knowing it was an unfinished product. The game has barely half the zones and has slightly different animations that aren't in the final game. The most important thing was that it was done illegally. That's an example of a bootleg, for those that aren't familiar with it. Bootlegs are usually not that well polished, no matter if it's a ROM hack or a reproduced cartridge. And despite it being illegal and not being allowed to exist, there's kind of something special about it. Now that we can look back on it for what it is, it's kind of cool seeing how much effort people put in this kind of stuff. Creating their own consoles, their own ROM hacks, learn to dump the ROMs they can resell illegally, it was all makeshift and homemade. Not saying that kind of stuff didn't exist over here because there's a long history of piracy of ROMs and emulators, but we tend to bridge in a more legal area. This cartridge can play almost every Nintendo game, but you have to get the ROMs legally, if you know what I'm saying. It really illustrates what video game copyright was like back then, and how anyone could really jump on it and make a quick buck. For the record, I'm not endorsing them, I just want to make it clear that I respect the effort that went into it. And I especially respect those that created their own original bootlegs. Games that they made entirely by themselves but had to illegally sell it because it was based off of existing properties. And this leads to Sonic. If you read the title of the video, it should be pretty obvious. Sonic's had a long history with bootlegs, even besides the Simon Y thing I mentioned. We got iconic legends such as Somari, a mixture of Sonic and Mario. Don't ask, I still don't know why this was made. And in the midst of all the bootlegs that got created and sold around, there lies some original games created by independent developers just want to make a quick buck off of you. They can be good, they can be bad, or who am I kidding, they're almost all bad. And the one that gets today's spotlight is Sonic 3D Blast 5, or Sonic Adventure 7, or Sonic Adventure 8. Yeah, this is the glorious footage you're getting today. 10 years ago, one of my favorite YouTubers, Space Hamster, uploaded a video going over Sonic bootlegs. Two of the games he quickly went over were Sonic Adventure 7 and Sonic 3D Blast 5. Bootlegs created for the Game Boy. While the section only lasted around 7 minutes in total, there was something about the game that caught my interest. It wasn't a ROM hack, a reproduction cart, no, this was an original creation. And regarding my thoughts on bootlegs and independent developers, I was intrigued. Unfortunately, downloading bootlegs wasn't part of my tech skills, even though I was comfortable pirating 20 million things, so it was only until this year that I really thought about playing it. Before I downloaded it though, there were a couple of key things I remember about the bootleg. 1. Spin dashing and turning to a ball doesn't work on enemies, and if you get hit, all your rings are gone. So two of the most fundamental aspects of Sonic were gone. Good to know. Because of the way the video was structured, I thought Sonic Adventure 7 was the original bootleg and 3D Blast 5 was the ripoff. It turns out after research, 3D Blast 5 was the original, and it has some interesting history. I'll get into who the developers are later, but the first bombshell I discovered was that this bootleg game wasn't just one. It was free, and as you'll soon come to understand, it's actually 5. One step at a time here. To respect its origins, let's first focus on Sonic 3D Blast 5, and it's a game, alright? If you ever want to know how to not make a game, 3D Blast 5 has all the fundamentals that you should follow. The controls are ass, the physics are ass, the level design is ass, and most importantly, the game looks like ass, which being real is the most important part. You'd be surprised how good graphics can trick people into thinking a game is good. Who said that? The game immediately starts off with stealing a shit ton of assets, but you probably wouldn't notice it because it's so crunched up that unless you know what it stole, you probably won't realize it. Unsurprisingly, it steals Sonic 3D Blast assets and also Triple Trouble. It also reuses Sonic music, but you probably won't notice it because... This is genuinely one of those games that you need to play to really understand it. I went into this game with basically no knowledge as I just wanted to witness what kind of masterpiece I was playing, and let me just say, this is definitely a video game. Usually I wouldn't go over each level, but there's only 5 levels and it has an actual natural progression of bullshit, so let's start from the top. Green Hill Act 1 is actually a pretty safe level, and it's really good at teaching you the mechanics of the game. For example, your movement is god-awful. There is barely any momentum at all, so don't expect to have any of that Sonic speed. Along with that, you are not safe when you're jumping. Jumping into enemies only works if you're on top of the enemy. Jump into the enemy, you get hit. Turn to a ball or spin dash, also get hit. In order to reasonably get through the game, you need to play it not as a Sonic game, but as a normal platformer. The camera is too zoomed in, so there are times you actually run into an enemy if you're not careful. And I think the worst part is that when you get hit, all your rings just vanish, they don't splatter all over the place. That's a core part of Sonic. You get hit, but you recover any rings that drop. Because of this, you only have 2 hits before you die. And get this shit, the game's not very good with invincibility frames, especially with spikes. Paying homage to Sonic 1, I guess, if you fall into spikes, you might as well give up because chances are you'll get hit, fall into a spike, get hit again, and then it's wrapped for you. Despite that though, the first level is a breeze as long as you play it slow and safe. I cannot say the same for Act 2. For some reason, all the acts are called Green Hill, despite this one clearly taking place in Flying Battery from Sonic 3. This is the part where you'll realize how difficult this game is, mostly because of the physics and level design. The game both delays and holds a lot of your inputs. For example, you can press right, but it'll take a second before it actually registers. And on the flip side, you can let go of an input and it'll take a second for you to stop moving. It isn't a problem in the first level because there aren't any dangerous hazards, but this level introduces bottomless pits! Do you love walking off the fucking stage when you clearly didn't want to? Then this level is for you! It's actually kinda evil how they trick you into starting off with a somewhat easy level and then placing bottomless pits and spikes everywhere because, oh yes, these levels get worse. This level starts a trend of bullshit level design. I already mentioned the bottomless pits, but how about platforms that move and also have jank physics that sometimes make you phase right through it? Ah, my favorite. I actually got stuck on this level during my first recording session. The knockback you receive is NES Castlevania levels in which you get pushed 20 feet back, so if you were next to a hole or bottomless pits, that's straight back to the start of the level. Yep, no checkpoints here. Do it flawlessly or fuck you. I actually gave up and switched to the other ROM hacks just to see what I had in store, and I'll share that later, but I made a sort of revelation on my second recording session.
Wait a minute.
I'm on the emulator. Yeah, I realized I was using an emulator. Fuck dignity and fuck honor. I'm playing this game the way I want. You don't start off with that many lives in the first place, so if you get a game over, it's wraps. How was anyone supposed to play this legitimately? And as you'll see soon, some parts of this game are impossible. But back to Act 2, this level is bullshit, but it is doable once you save states 20 million times. I'm actually kinda curious how many deaths I had in total, but I don't really care about that next act. Act 3 is Spring Yard Zone, and this level confirms something for me. I had a feeling when I played Act 2, but Act 3 cemented it for me. The developers are evil. It's one thing to make a shitty game, but it's another to make a shitty game knowingly and taking advantage of it. Oftentimes, many bad developers will make level design that doesn't correspond to physics and controls, leading to bullshit that makes you question if the developers playtested it or not. But this game? Oh no. This level design works perfectly with the game engine to fuck you over. These levels were specifically made with the game engine in mind to be as annoying as possible, to be as hard as possible, and to make you die as much as possible. Bottomless pits are abundant, and they often place enemies in spots that if you jump normally, you will die. They want you to jump at specific angles to either avoid or kill the enemy to pass through. Once you make this realization, you realize that the developers did everything purposefully. There are some jumps that if you miss, you gotta kill yourself. Or you have to go off screen to spawn an enemy, jump on them, and only then will you have enough distance to pass through. What the fuck? This game is brilliantly made to be as shitty as possible. Also, just a little FYI, don't play this in full screen. Some of the graphics genuinely hurt my eyes while I'm editing this, so if I'm suffering watching it on a monitor, you might have a hard time as well. Also, watching my footage makes me realize just how often I use save states. I'm starting to think this game was made as hard as possible just to ensure you never complete the game and realize it only has 5 levels. But that's just a theory. A game theory! Act 4. Act 4. Act 4. The developers went down to the depths of hell and made a deal with the devil to create a level so ass it would prompt anyone playing to immediately kill the first person next to them. This level is the longest in the game, no doubt, and also has some of the most insane situations that you'll be put into. This level's gimmick, alongside the floating platforms and bombless pits, is the awesome hanging platforms. That's right, the gimmick for this level are platforms that fall once you stay on them for too long. Sounds easy, right? Well, guess what? How about you start platforming over them with enemies that can easily knock you off? This level is quite literally impossible to beat if RNG doesn't favor you. Some platforms actually do not spawn. If that happens, you're just screwed. There's nothing you can do, which is why save states become almost essential. And then there's this part. There's this section where you have to jump over floating platforms until you reach this area that you can't reach. You'll get stuck here and wonder what you did wrong. In fact, I actually save stated here, so I had to restart the level fully. I actually searched on the wiki, and it directly said that this level was impossible without cheats, or by learning a buzz bomb, what the fuck that means. After trial and error and using save states a million times, I eventually discovered a method to get past this part. What you need to do is jump to this platform one by one until you reach here. Now you have to wait until the buzz bomber reaches just high enough and then jump, and make sure not to jump in the arc. Jump straight up or else you'll hit the enemy and fall to your death. After jumping on the enemy, you need to move right to bounce off the other enemy to finally make it past the hole. Jump too early, you won't have enough distance to get past the hole. Wait too late and you'll just fucking fall. And the worst part is, you have only one chance to do this. The platforms remember how long you stayed onto them. They don't reset, so at a certain point, if you just jump on the platform, they'll instantly fall. So basically, this is literally impossible in 99% of the scenarios. After researching videos on this bootleg, there was only one video I saw that did the same method as mine. Red Hot Sonic is the only one that's actually recreated the same method I did. This one long play I saw actually gave up more than the comments pointed out, and it's fucking hilarious. Also, after editing, I realized that Red Hot Sonic's video basically covers everything I also talk about in the video. I do apologize if some things are the same content-wise. I think it's enough to be different, and I low-key don't want to scrap this video, so sorry. After the clusterfuck that was Act 4, Act 5 isn't too bad, but has a very apparent fetish with hills. Slopes are everywhere in this level, and it makes jumping on enemies a pain in the ass because of the height difference. This level has so many sections where you need to jump over so many holes, and so many times I just ran off because of fucking controls. You know what? Thinking about it, this game has a ton of fetishes. It has a fetish for pain, torture, bombless pits, the void, and I guess making you want to die as well. When I eventually beat the game, I did not feel a sense of emotion. It wasn't a feeling of triumph or happiness. It wasn't like beating a boss in the old school Castlevania, no. I felt nothing. All I got was Yang, the creators of the game. It's time to reveal who these fuckers are, the people who created this god-awful game. Yang, or Maconsoft as they're more popularly known by, are the creators of Sonic 3D Blast 5, and this isn't their first bootleg. In fact, they have a very long history of creating bootlegs, with almost 4 other games using the same exact game engine as Sonic 3D Blast 5. It's time to talk about the variants. Sonic 3D Blast 5 has essentially been remade and repackaged under a different name multiple times to, I guess, make more sales and fuck with people who are traumatized by 3D Blast 5. These variants are Sonic Adventure 7 and 8, and the only different things about them is that they actually have a color palette and the levels are mixed around, creating a clusterfuck of a difficulty curve. Unsurprisingly, I did not play too much of these variants, as they are essentially the same game at its core. I guess some of the music is also different, but look me dead in the eye and say that's a selling point. Looking at some of the box art for these bootlegs is so interesting because seeing art used for later game consoles be put on a Game Boy cartridge is so bizarre. It's one of the special things about bootlegs that give it a very unique charm. That doesn't change the game itself though. You know what, fuck that, scratch everything I said about respect for bootlegs, they shall burn hell. We're not done yet though, because there are a few other handful of variants that we should address. And this time, it's not related to Sonic. It's related to Pokemon. Yes, Maconsoft saw their amazing game engine that they made themselves, by the way, and decided Pokemon should be the best place for it. Welcome Pokemon Jade, which is just Sonic 3D Blast 5 Democoded Paint. It's not even fucking so. Look at this. They made that fucking game engine and abused it everywhere, and that's so important. I gotta respect it. This is definitely a bootleg though, and it's also broken as you can't progress past the first level. Why does Pikachu look like that? There was also another variant that was Pokemon themed called Pokemon Adventure. Unfortunately, I couldn't get the ROM for this video. I'm not signed for your stupid website, but the wiki says it has actual unique levels, so good for them, I guess. An odd fact is that this bootleg was released in 2000, which starts the decade in which bootlegs kind of started dying off. I assume it was harder to make bootlegs of CDs, or rules regarding copyright of games getting more stricter as time went on. Who's to say? There's probably a video I can search up, but that's for you and me to watch later. It really is intriguing seeing all these unofficial developers and publishers just have their names across games that aren't officially recognized. And the fact that spread across multiple consoles and handhelds makes their imprint more noticeable. Many developers didn't even credit themselves, probably to avoid being killed by lawyers. So it leads to a very underground network where a bunch of these publishers and developers work together to release these illegally made games. Sometimes the reward of beating their game was simply to know who made it, like Sonic 3D Blast 5. Maybe some want fame, some want on money, but either way, these games were released on the store shelves for some poor kid to play and receive PTSD. When I started writing this video, I had a ton of respect for bootlegs. You know, how they operate and did things, how they bent the rules and created products that are one of a kind, can't be replicated ever again in today's world. It was illegal, it was wrong, but there was something intriguing about them. But now, after this video and what I just went through, all of them go to hell and go that was bad.